My name is Jessica Whittaker, and I have always thought that I lived a pretty ordinary life. I am 32 years old, I live in Portland, Oregon, and until not that long ago, my day-to-day routine was pretty unremarkable. I manage a financial planning team for a mid-sized company downtown. My mornings start with coffee, the 30-minute bus ride to work, and scrolling through the endless list of emails that seem to accumulate faster than I can possibly open them. Some evenings, I meet up with my friends at some bar that's trendy this month. Other nights, I just head home and cook something simple in my little apartment off Hawthorne. Most would call me reliable, maybe a little too forgiving, always eager to smooth things over even when people were being unfair. That's the way I was raised, I suppose. Play nice. Let things go. Of course, if you asked me 3 years ago if I saw myself as the vengeful type, I would have laughed at the very idea. But that was before I learned just how much one awful person can still haunt your life, even years after you thought you left all that behind. I thought I was done with high school drama and all that misery, but I was wrong. Some people are like poisoned arrows. If you pull the wound open, you realize the tip is still inside. I'm not usually someone who clings to grudges. Even back in high school, I was the kind of girl who tried to find the good in everyone, or at the very least, just keep my head down and make it through. I wore thick-rimmed glasses, played clarinet in the school band, and tried not to attract too much attention. None of that meant I was invisible, though. Especially not to people like Tyler Evans. If you want to understand the story that follows, you need to know a little about Tyler. Tyler was the tall, athletic guy that everyone seemed to orbit around, even the teachers. He ran track, played football, dated a different cheerleader every season, and made fun of anyone he thought was weaker. If high school was a party, Tyler was always in the center of the dance floor, arms around everyone's shoulders, beer in hand, making fun of the ones on the edge. That was where I lived, on the edge, praying not to get noticed. But Tyler always noticed. And when he did, it was some anti-gay joke, or he'd snatch my clarinet and pretend to use it as a toilet plunger, or he'd whisper, "Loser," as he passed by and shove my books into the puddle in the quad. I do not think there was a week in sophomore or junior year where I did not have to fish my backpack out of a trash can, and everyone just kind of ignored it. Some people giggled. Most just acted like they couldn't see. But that was the thing. Even after he graduated and life moved on, and it always does, I figured I would never see him again. And my friends, well, they liked Tyler, at least the version of him that partied with them and acted charming in front of the right people. I pushed everything down, refused to talk about those days. I did not want to be the girl that let some high school bully live rent-free in her head forever. Life's funny, though. It never lets you keep the past in a nice, separate box. It leaks out in all directions, especially if you ignore it. And sometimes, you find out just how much it's poisoned you when you are forced to face it head-on. The night everything began, I was out with a group of old friends from high school, a routine we had managed to keep, especially as we all found ourselves back in Portland after college. There was Kari, who worked at an art gallery downtown, and Aaron, who was always quick with a joke and slower with a tip. Becker was there, too. He had come out recently and had a new boyfriend that none of us had met yet. The night was supposed to be easy. We were at a microbrewery on Division, ordering loaded fries and talking about old teachers and exes. Everyone was a little tipsy, a little too nostalgic. We never talked about Tyler or the ways certain people made our lives hell back then. That night, though, the universe decided to test how well I could really hide the ugly truth. It was Kari who first spotted him at the bar, ordering a round of whiskey shots and talking loud enough for everyone to hear. I recognized him instantly. He looked the same as ever, just a little heavier in the jaw and still dressing like he thought Abercrombie shirts made you bulletproof. His hair was shorter, but everything else was pure Tyler. My stomach went cold. My spine did that thing it used to do in homeroom, where I'd try to shrink into a chair and not make eye contact as he strutted past. Even after all those years, I was surprised at how potent the feeling still was, pure dread. You want to believe you change, but some things really dig in. The others, though, did not seem fazed at all. In fact, when Tyler sauntered over and shouted, "Well, look who it is," the group seemed delighted. He hugged Kari hard enough to almost topple her stool, clapped Aaron on the shoulder, laughed with Becker. It was like nothing had happened, like this wasn't the guy who made high school miserable for anyone not in his circle. My throat tightened and I focused on my drink, praying he wouldn't notice me. No such luck. In less than a minute, he was standing over me. "Jess!" he said, stretching my name into 2 syllables, the way people do when they are trying to be friendly and failing badly. Still running with the nerd herd, huh? I faked a smile. Hey Tyler, I didn't know you were back in Portland. He grinned a huge, predatory grin. Aw, just checking in on all the losers. Some things never change, right? I wanted to disappear, but the others didn't see or didn't want to. Becker tried to smooth things over. Hey man, grab a seat. First round's on Jessica, right? Everyone laughed except me. Tyler slid into the seat next to mine, close enough that I could smell the gin on his breath. Throughout that first hour, he dominated every conversation, telling grand stories about women he'd slept with, fights he'd won, drugs he might have experimented with. He made fun of me for drinking cider instead of beer and asked if I still played my little nerd flute. He even mocked my job, asking if I counted other people's money because I was too shy to make any myself. Every time, the group laughed that nervous laugh people use when they want to stay on someone's good side. I just smiled tightly and tried to change the subject. It was humiliating how quickly he slid back into that same old role, right there in front of all my friends. And it cut deeper that none of them really called him out, not seriously. I expected more from them. Guess I shouldn't have. After about 3 hours, everyone was pretty buzzed. Tyler had bought 2 rounds of shots, and his voice was even louder than before. That was when he started opening up about his life, about his ex-girlfriend, his little girl, how hard it was with shared custody. He made a lot of jokes at his ex's expense, calling her crazy and a real psycho, and said how he hated having to drop off his kid on weekends. Something about the way he grinned as he said it made my skin crawl. He was the same as always, someone who blamed everyone else for his mess. I excused myself to the bathroom, breathing deep in the quiet stall, telling myself not to make a scene. But when I came back, he was bragging about something even more alarming. I swear you wouldn't believe how easy it is to move product in this city, Tyler was saying, gesturing with his glass. Meth, coke, even a little Molly if you know the right people. Got a sweet setup right now. No one suspects the clean-cut kid from the burbs. Kari looked horrified, or maybe she was just playing along. You're joking, Tyler hiccuped. Not even, he said, chuckling. Pays better than any of your fancy jobs, that's for sure. Used to laugh at the junkies growing up, but hell, somebody's got to do it, right? I thought at first he was posturing. In high school, Tyler was always trying to prove how tough he was. But there was a weird confidence in his voice now, a kind of nastiness that felt real. I studied his eyes, bloodshot and unblinking. He seemed proud of what he was. I pushed my drink away. I think I'm ready to call it a night, I said. That was when Tyler snapped into full bully mode. Aw, come on, Jesse, don't be a little baby. Damn, do you ever stop being so uptight? Is that why you never got a guy in high school? Scared of a little fun? His voice got louder and nastier, and he started making flicking motions with the peanuts on the table, peppering me with them like some cheap sideshow act. Come on, lighten up, he sneered. God, you still are the same whiny loser little. He used a slur I will not repeat here, the kind my stomach twists to hear. I stared at him, anger rising in my chest so hot it burned my tongue. I finally said what I should have said years before. You're the same coward you always were, Tyler. The same, and I used a word I never use, a word that finally made him stop and look at me like I'd drawn blood. The word echoed across the table. The bar itself seemed to go silent. For a moment, Tyler looked truly shocked that anyone had spoken back to him. He puffed up and slammed his fist on the table. What did you just call me? I met his glare. You heard me. You're still that kid who picks on people because you know you are nothing without a crowd. People were staring now. Tyler got up, face twisted in rage. He started shouting, voice slurred and wild. You think you can talk to me like that? He screamed. You little, security was there in seconds, stepping between us. You're done for tonight, sir, the bouncer said, pushing Tyler toward the door. Tyler struggled, throwing every insult he had my way, but the bouncer just dragged him outside. I sat frozen at the table, adrenaline dumping into my veins. The group did not say much at first. Kari was pale, Becker was silent, Aaron fidgeted with his phone. I tried not to cry, but my hands shook so hard that my cider nearly spilled. I asked, did none of you really remember what he was like? Kari said. I mean, he was a jerk sometimes, but high school was awful for me, I said. He made every day hell. Nobody argued, but nobody apologized either. That stung worse than anything. We sat there in uncomfortable silence for another 20 minutes, the fun long gone. When we finally left, I fished out my phone for an Uber. I glanced toward the alley outside the bar, and that's when I saw him. Tyler was waiting, pacing in the shadows, his eyes wild. Jess, get your ass over here, he yelled. I took a step backward, but he closed the distance before anyone could react. You think you're better than me? You think you can call me that name? He snarled. Before I could scream or run, he grabbed me around the neck, locking me in a headlock so tight I could not breathe. Say it again. He spat, tightening his grip. My vision tunneled. I kicked, scratched, but he was too strong. The world faded out. When I came to, I was lying in the gutter, my clothes soaked. Tyler was standing above me, pants undone, and he was urinating on me right in the street in front of everyone. My friends were frozen, mouths open, but none of them moved to help. He zipped up, spat at my shoes, and stormed off into the night, triumphant. I could barely move. Tears stung my eyes, and humiliation burned deeper than the bruises on my neck. My friends stood in a silent huddle, no one meeting my gaze. Kari offered her jacket. Erin tried to help me up, but I shrugged them off. I stumbled into the Uber alone, my hands shaking so hard I dropped my purse twice. That night I showered 3 times, sobbing so hard I thought I might crack open. My whole body felt wrong, invaded. I stared at the shower tiles, trying to erase the sensation of his hands, his disgusting laughter, the way my friends did nothing. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I could not sleep for days after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured that alley and his face, and the look on my friends' faces as they did nothing. I kept replaying their silence in my mind. I was so angry at them, angry at myself too, for freezing, for not fighting harder, for still caring what these people thought. The more I thought about it, the more furious I became. Then, sometime around day 5, I remembered one crucial detail. I swear you wouldn't believe how easy it is to move product in this city, Tyler had bragged. Meth. I never thought I would even consider going to the police. I have never trusted law enforcement and had spent my adult life in progressive circles where everyone agreed calling the police was only for emergencies. Besides, it is not like they made a habit of protecting people like me. But something in me, some deep animal part, needed to do something. Tyler had always been protected. By money, by friends, by his own charm. He had never faced real consequences for anything, so I called the police. My hands shook as I dialed the non-emergency line and gave them his full name, told them where he lived, and explained that he was selling meth, lots of it, to kids. I even gave them the name of his ex-girlfriend who had their daughter on alternating weekends. The woman on the line asked me to spell the name twice, then thanked me. She did not seem hopeful, but she took my statement. For weeks, I heard nothing. After a while, the anger faded behind the grind of daily life. I returned to work, took long walks, avoided my high school group. I left every happy hour invite unanswered, let Erin's texts pile up, ignored the group chat. They tried to act like nothing had happened, but I could not stomach being near people who could leave me in a gutter like that and just shrug. I started therapy instead, talking to a woman named Dana who wore chunky glasses and always offered me tea. The first session, I broke down in tears when I tried to explain why I felt so unmoored. I feel invisible, I said. I feel like I am always the one who has to be the bigger person, even when people are literally hurting me. Dana nodded, humming softly, and asked, "What would you do if you let yourself be as angry as you actually are?" I did not know the answer then. About 2 months later, something changed. I was scrolling through Facebook, half bored, when a post from our old high school group caught my eye. Kari had shared a local news article. The headline read, "Portland man arrested in major meth raid." The mugshot was unmistakable. Tyler's hair, Tyler's curled lip, Tyler's eyes swollen half shut. The article went into detail about the raid. Illegal weapons found in the house, a significant quantity of methamphetamine packaged for sale, and most damning, a young child present during the arrest. My legs went weak. The article detailed how police had acted on an anonymous tip, how neighbors were shocked, how Tyler's ex-girlfriend had rushed over to retrieve their daughter after the raid. Social services had gotten involved. The case would go to trial. Immediately, my phone buzzed with group messages. Erin sent a screenshot adding, "Guess we dodged a bullet, huh?" Someone else replied, "Holy crap, remember when he crashed Jessica's party that time?" Yikes. I did not reply. Instead, I sat staring at the mugshot, guilt eating my stomach. It would have felt easier if he'd just been an adult, alone, wrecking his own life. But there was a kid, his little girl, caught in the crossfire. I tried to tell myself it was not my fault that he put her in this mess by dealing drugs around her. But each time I saw her name, each time I pictured her being pulled out of the house by police, I felt sick. I did something I have never done before. I put on my coat and walked for miles, all the way to Selwood, through the neighborhoods and across the bridge. I thought about the way Tyler always bragged about winning, about being untouchable. I thought about that night in the gutter and the way my friends had stood by in the shadows. I thought about Dana's question, what would I do if I let myself be as angry as I actually am? In the days that followed, the case spiraled across social media. Old classmates weighed in, gossiping about the downfall of the golden boy. Some posted sympathetic messages about addiction and second chances. Others called him a monster. More than once, people tagged me, asking if I was okay or if I knew anything. I made myself scarce online, muting threads and deleting apps from my phone. It was all too much. The more I thought about it, though, the more I saw how justified my anger really was. Tyler had spent his whole life hurting people and never suffered real consequences. For years, he was untouchable. I was always the one wiping her bruises and pretending it was nothing. Now, finally, another shoe had dropped, and he could not wiggle out. Maybe nobody would ever know it was my call that did it, but I did. And in some twisted way, I was finally free. Or at least I was supposed to be. That's what I thought. But life was only just getting started. Turns out, my little act of revenge had consequences beyond anything I had imagined. There were days when it felt good. I would wake up, remember the look on his face that night outside the bar, the gleam in his eye as he humiliated me, and feel a jolt of satisfaction. I would picture him in an orange jumpsuit, pacing a cold cell, no crowd, no friends, no little army to protect him. I wondered if he thought about me, if he realized that he drove me to this. Sometimes I hoped he knew. Sometimes, late at night, I prayed he never figured it out, but there were days the guilt hit harder. Kari messaged me a week after the news broke. "Did you see?" she asked. "I can't believe he's in jail, and his daughter, she's going to be dealing with this forever. I heard social services is involved." She did not know what I had done, but the question was clear. "Do you think he deserves it?" I started to unravel a little. Sleeping less, eating less, skipping work. There were mornings when I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by empty coffee mugs, texting Dana in the middle of the night because I could not stop thinking about that poor little girl, ripped away from a home because her father could not stop being a monster. First, he ruined my childhood. Now mine was the hand that ruined hers. Dana tried to walk me through it. "What do you want to happen next?" she asked me in one session. "Do you think there is a way for you to forgive yourself?" "I don't know," I whispered. He deserved to be stopped, but no one deserves to lose their family. Dana closed her notebook and studied me. "Did you ever think about what would have happened if no one had done anything?" she asked gently. "How many more people might have been hurt?" I closed my eyes and nodded, unsure whether that helped. The fallout just kept growing. Someone from Tyler's family tried to reach out, messaging me on Facebook. "Did you hear what happened to Ty? Unbelievable. No one deserves this treatment." I deleted the message. Kari started seeing one of Tyler's old friends, and she pulled back from the group as more people took sides. I found myself, for the first time, thinking about what friendship actually meant, who would stand up for you, who would hide when you needed them most. One night, Aaron called and apologized for not stepping in that night by the bar. "I froze," he admitted. It all happened so fast, Jess. I should have done something. I'm sorry." His voice shook. "You remember in high school, I used to get bullied too? Not as bad as you, but sometimes I still hear his voice in my head. You think he'll ever pay enough for what he did?" I thought for a long time. "No, but maybe it's not about him anymore." Aaron was quiet. "Do you think you'll ever forgive us?" I did not answer, and we both let the silence hang. The trial loomed in the background all summer. Every few weeks, some piece of news turned up online. Tyler's bail was denied. More charges got stacked up: intent to distribute, child endangerment, illegal weapons. There were rumors that he was cooperating, naming other dealers, trying to make a deal. He looked gaunt in every court photo. Sometimes I felt a grim glee. Other times I just felt numb. Meanwhile, my own life started changing in strange ways. I found myself more assertive at work, less willing to let others take credit for my ideas. My supervisor called me in for a review in late August. "Jessica, you seem different lately," she said, watching me over her wire-rimmed glasses. "You're more direct. It's good, but I want to make sure you're okay." I gave a little laugh. "Just working through some things," I said. "Learning not to let people walk all over me." She nodded. "Good." About time. I walked home that night feeling lighter. For years, I had let so many things slide: workplace slights, toxic friendships, everything. Now I was angry, but that anger felt strangely clarifying. I began taking better care of myself, cooked real meals, started running not because of Tyler but in spite of him. I was not just surviving anymore. I was finally taking up space. All the while, the group chat hummed in the background. Some nights, Kari sent nostalgic photos from old parties, but she rarely messaged me directly. Becker came by once, dropped off soup when I was sick, but never said much about Tyler. Aaron tried a few times to get everyone together, but nothing felt the same. I realized most friendships are built on inertia. They keep going until one person stops trying. As summer wore down into a smoky Portland autumn, I followed the last days of Tyler's trial like someone watching her old tormentor getting his due. The news said he pled guilty to multiple charges. His lawyer tried to blame addiction, but the sheer amount of meth and guns drowned any sympathy. At sentencing, the judge called it a pattern of endangerment rooted in greed and cowardice. Tyler was sentenced to 15 years. I read the article twice. Then I closed my laptop, made tea, and stared out my window at the rain. That night, for the first time in months, I slept through the night. Over the next few weeks, word spread through our old high school circles. Some people claimed they always knew he would end up in prison. Others insisted it was all a setup. But a very few, messaged me privately to admit they had their own Tyler stories. "He was awful to me, too," one girl wrote. "You weren't the only one." I wondered how many of us had spent years twisting in silence, convinced no one would believe us, afraid to make waves. It is not that I stopped feeling guilty, exactly. I kept thinking about his daughter, probably bouncing between homes, maybe in therapy, maybe not. But that sense of powerlessness, of being forced to swallow every injustice, was shrinking. For once, I had pulled the lever. Maybe that made me a bad person. Or maybe, just maybe, it made me someone new, the kind of woman who will not just let herself be the victim again. Then, something happened that made all the old wounds ache again. One afternoon in late October, just as the last leaves were swirling down in Laurelhurst Park, I found an envelope stuck under my apartment door. It had my name scribbled across the front in shaky handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, no return address, no signature. "Jess, hope you're happy. Your little stunt blew up more lives than you know. Take a look in the mirror sometimes. People are watching." A friend. I felt a cold wave crawl up my back. I turned the paper over, searching for any clue, but it was blank. I thought about Kari and her new boyfriend, who still hung with some of Tyler's old friends. I thought about Becker, who had stopped answering texts after summer. I even wondered about Aaron, but it did not feel like his voice. Whoever wrote it wanted to scare me. For days, I jumped at every knock on the door. I unplugged my phone at night, changed my social media passwords, and even bought pepper spray for my bag. I told Dana at my next therapy session, and she nodded quietly. "There's always fallout," she said. "Do you feel unsafe?" "Not exactly," I replied. "Just watched, like I can't breathe." Dana wrote something in her notebook. "What would it take for you to feel like yourself again?" I whispered. "I don't know," and swallowed back tears. That was the start of the next day, the part where the revenge that was supposed to free me crashed right back in, this time making me question everyone I'd ever trusted. Within a week, more messages began appearing. Nasty emails from dummy accounts, threats about telling everyone what you did, even a scrawled note taped to my office mailbox at work. Rat! My colleagues did not know what to make of it. I laughed it off as a disgruntled client, but inside I was shaking. I filed a police report after the third one. The officer barely looked at me as he filled in the blanks. "Lot of weirdos out there, ma'am," he said. "Let us know if anything escalates." I left feeling more alone than ever. The hardest part was not knowing who to trust. When Kari called one night, asking if I wanted to meet up for brunch, I hesitated. We met at a little diner on Morrison, and she looked nervous from the second she sat down. "I wanted to talk to you," she began, stirring her coffee. "Look, I know things got weird after that night. I should have done more, Jess. I was scared, and I'm sorry. I never realized how bad things really were." I nodded, biting my lip. She looked down. "But there are people, Tyler's friends, who really think someone from our group tipped off the police. They're asking around. Becker is freaked out. Even Ben got a couple of weird messages." I studied her. "You think it's my fault?" She shook her head. "No, you did the right thing. But people are looking for someone to blame. And I just be careful, okay?" I thanked her but could not shake the sense that I was being tested. Was she really on my side or just trying to see how much I would confess? Later that week, I ran into Becker at the grocery store. He looked exhausted, shopping basket full of frozen dinners and Red Bull. He hesitated before waving. "Jessica, hey," he said. I heard things are getting weird. I'm sorry. I wanted to reach out just." I didn't know what to say. "Is there anything I can do?" I studied his eyes. "Just be honest with me, Becker. Did you tell anybody I was involved?" He shook his head. "No way, I figured it out, but it's not my place. I wouldn't, but there are whispers, you know, people throwing around accusations. Tyler's family is nuts." "Let them talk," I said. "I'm done hiding." He half smiled. "You sure?" No, I was not sure, but I had to pretend. Halloween rolled around and the threats escalated. Someone threw eggs at my car. When I vented to Dana, she said, people lash out when the power balance shifts. They want you to feel like a criminal for breaking the silence. I began to wonder if it was worth it. If maybe I should have just healed in silence, let Tyler keep destroying lives under the radar. My breaking point came a few nights later. I was walking home from work, crossing the bridge as the sun slipped behind the gray skyline. A figure fell in step behind me, too close. I sped up, heart thumping. The footsteps matched mine until a voice hissed, "You think you're safe, you stuck-up bitch." I spun around, fumbling for my pepper spray. But just as quickly the person ducked into an alley, disappearing into the shadows. I made it home shaken and rattled. That night I called Kari, asking her to come over. When she arrived, I broke down. "I can't do this anymore," I sobbed. I did the right thing, right?" She hugged me tight, hands trembling. "You did the right thing. Tyler's been hurting people for years. Don't let his friends make you feel guilty." For the first time since all this started, I let myself be comforted. Things shifted after that. Maybe it was just that I was finally tired of feeling hunted. Or maybe Kari's words helped patch some of the holes in my heart. I stopped caring about what people said behind my back. I went to work. I took care of myself. I began seeing more of the city, hiking in Forest Park, breakfast at tiny, hidden mom-and-pop places, book browsing in old record stores. I met new people, people who did not judge me for my past, did not care about my high school reputation or Tyler or gossip. People who showed up when I needed them. I was still afraid, but I could feel something shifting. I was learning not to apologize for protecting myself. I realized I never had to be small again. Winter set in, bringing the rain and the early dark. The messages eventually stopped. Maybe Tyler's friends lost steam. Maybe they just found another target. Or maybe, deep down, they knew I had done what none of them had the courage to do. The last message I got was from Aaron. "He's not coming back, Jess. You did what nobody else could." I texted back, not with forgiveness, not yet, but with gratitude. As winter washed the city clean, I found myself changing in ways I never expected. Not every day was good. Some nights I still woke up gasping, certain someone would be waiting outside my door. But I also found an odd kind of strength in my own rage, a pride that I once thought was only for people like Tyler. I realized that I could be unforgiving, that I could stand up for myself, and maybe that was not a flaw. One icy morning, as I was jogging through Laurelhurst Park, I saw something that stopped me cold. Tyler's ex-girlfriend, Andrea, with his daughter on her hip. I hesitated before approaching. "Excuse me, Andrea," I called. She turned, surprise flickering across her face. "Jessica, right? From high school?" I nodded. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything your daughter's going through." Andrea's face hardened. "You don't have anything to be sorry for. Ty did this to himself. At least now I don't have to worry about him dragging her into things." She studied me for a beat too long. "Did you tip off the police?" I hesitated, thinking about all the secrets and shame. "Yes," I said, voice small. She let out a breath. "Good, somebody finally stood up to him. For what it's worth, I'm grateful. It's been hell, but at least it's over." Her daughter looked up at me, eyes innocent. I crouched down and waved. "Hi there." She smiled shyly and waved back. Andrea smiled too. "Take care, Jessica." I watched them walk away, a weight finally lifting. In the weeks and months that followed, I felt myself slowly, falteringly reclaiming my life. I started writing in a journal, not just about Tyler, but about forgiveness of others, of myself. I volunteered with a shelter for women and children, finding quiet ways to give back. I let myself dream bigger, apply for a promotion, take risks with friendships that seemed real. I even called my parents and told them the whole story, something I never would have done before. My mother cried. My father just listened. Together, we started to build something new. And yet sometimes, I still walk past the bar where it all began, and I remember that night. The way Tyler tried to drown me in humiliation, the way nobody stopped him. I remember how easy it is for the world to look away. But I also remember the feeling of power as I dialed the phone, the moment I decided I would not be a victim anymore. I do not believe in happy endings, not exactly. I do not believe in some neat little bow that makes the world fair. But I do believe in survival, and maybe more important, in fighting for the right to take up space, to refuse to be erased. They say revenge does not change anything, that it just makes you bitter, that it leaves a stain you cannot wash out. Maybe that's true. I know I am forever changed by what happened, by what I did. I am not shiny or untouched, but I am stronger. I am alive. And if Tyler ever gets out, if he ever comes crawling back into the world, I will not be waiting in fear. Maybe, if I am being honest, I am looking forward to the day I can piss on his grave instead. Because sometimes, survival looks like revenge. Sometimes, justice means not turning away when the world wants you silent. My name is Jessica Whittaker. And I am not silent anymore.